Hello, fellow mompreneurs. Welcome to the Real Moms Podcast, the go-to space for resilient entrepreneurs who are striving for abundant living. I'm your host, Shae Spitz, a mompreneur and a realtor here in Columbus, Nebraska. Are you a mom juggling the hustle of entrepreneurship, family life, and personal growth? Well, you're in the right place. On this podcast, we dive deep into the real, unfiltered stories of incredible women who are navigating the journey of mompreneurship. We'll celebrate the victories, share practical insights, and acknowledge that it's okay to face challenges along the way. Success isn't about the destination. It's about the journey and the growth we experience as we balance our careers and the chaos of family life. Whether you're a seasoned mompreneur or just starting on this exciting path, join me and our amazing guests as we explore what it truly means to be a resilient entrepreneur striving for abundant living. Get ready for real, raw, and remarkable conversations that will inspire and uplift you. Because here at the Real Moms Podcast, we believe in the power of community, authenticity, and the strength that comes from embracing the journey together. So grab your coffee, find a cozy spot, and let's dive into the world of mompreneurship. This is the Real Moms Podcast, where we celebrate the hustle, honor the struggle, and thrive as resilient entrepreneurs living abundantly. Welcome to another episode of Real Moms, where resilient entrepreneurs create abundant lives for themselves and their families. Before we jump into today's conversation, I'd love your support. If you're inspired by what you hear, hit subscribe, leave a 5-star review, and share this episode with another mom who's building her business and her dreams. Your reviews and shares help us spread the message that moms can truly have both success in business and abundance at home. So let's dive in. I like to start every episode off with a motivational quote, and today's quote is, "The eye doesn't see. The brain sees. The eye just transmits. So what isn't only determined by what comes through the eyes, what we see is affected by our memories, our feelings, and by what we've seen before." So I love that because it reminds that, well, this message ties beautifully into today's guest, and today's guest is Alyssa Scarano. She's a licensed professional counselor, national certified counselor, so NCC, and the founder of the clinical director, the Collective Therapy and Wellness. Alyssa is well known for her empathetic, compassionate approach to healing. She specializes in relationships and helps individuals heal from childhood trauma, break generational patterns, and build meaningful connections, starting with self-compassion. As both a mother and a therapist, she understands how parenthood can reopen old chapters of our lives, offering both challenges and profound opportunities for healing. So welcome, Alyssa, to the Real Moms Podcast. I appreciate your time for being here.
Thank you so much for having me. We were talking briefly about how important it is to be able to have a sense of community and connection and other people to talk through, because this journey is not easy.
Yeah.
So I'm happy to be here.
Yes, absolutely. And I think one of the biggest stigmas around therapy is a lot of people think that you should go to therapy because we have problems. While that is also true, but I also have been told and taught that therapy is a great way. It's kind of like preventative maintenance. A good example is that you don't go get your oil change when you start having problems. You get your oil change for preventative maintenance. So I think therapy obviously can help with past trauma, but I also think it's like preventative maintenance. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, absolutely. It's another form of self-care. I think another way also to look at it is it's practice of having a healthy relationship, right? If you think about, maybe you've not had many experiences, or maybe you do, right, in your life, of being able to talk about something or talk about yourself or have all of your emotions without judgment. And maybe you've not really experienced a lot of validation in your life and you've been carrying a lot alone. It's like therapy really is a space where you can form a healthy relationship and feel seen and heard and work through some stuff that maybe you've not actually had a chance to talk through. Ultimately, that's like a prime example of having a safe relationship.
Right. So what got you into what you're doing today? Where did your path go? What's your journey like? Why are you here?
There's a long story and a short story, so I'll try and give you somewhere in the middle. So my interest, I've always been very interested in people. Always. I actually loved reading growing up. I loved the idea of the character arc in a story, the idea of the narrator, whether it was an honest narrator, a dishonest narrator, omnipotent narrator. I just loved stories, right? Nonfiction as well. And through my own healing and my own experiences of sharing my story, finding my words to tell my story, and experiencing what it was like to feel seen and heard, that's something that I wanted to give back to people. But the connection that you also form with that therapist or the person in the room, really, it can then start to extend out beyond the therapy room, right? Because you have now this experience with one other person. It is possible to cultivate that and create that and honor it in other relationships in your life, but also in how you treat yourself. And so
Right.
I wanted to give that back to people.
Now you started the collective therapy and wellness. Is that correct? Like you
Yep.
founded it, you started it. Okay, and your work focuses on deep emotional awareness and breaking through generational patterns. What are some of the main themes or conversations like you're passionate about?
Ultimately, what I'm passionate about is helping people heal from childhood trauma. And it doesn't even always have to be that there was maybe severe trauma or intense trauma. Really, trauma is anything that rewires the brain in terms of understanding of safety and security and inward in ourselves, but also in relationships and in the world. And there's different severities of that, right? So it's really a matter of if you've grown up in certain scenarios and maybe develop the idea that love is performative or conditional upon me acting in certain ways, as long as I'm the good girl, as long as I don't say the thing that's on my mind because it can start drama or conflict. Those are all different little versions of trauma that cause us to maybe cut off or silence parts of ourselves or abandon parts of ourselves. It causes us to change really who we are in a way. And in that, there's sometimes a disconnect that happens internally. So, in terms of what I'm really passionate about, it's helping people connect to themselves, to feel more empowered and less alone. And those ways that you've learned to be or act in the world that you had to in order to survive your childhood, they're not really working anymore. So, what can we do instead?
Yeah. So what are some things that you could like people can do instead in situations like that?
I think it's going to depend on what it is that we're talking about because there's a lot of different sometimes roles that we carry on from our childhood out of survival. I had to be the good girl or I had to do well in school. Mom and dad had a lot on their plate and they couldn't really give me maybe the time that I needed, or I had to suppress my emotions because when I had big emotions, then there was a sense of me being bad, right?
Yeah.
Or causing stress for mom and dad. So there's all different versions of how this stuff shows up. But ultimately, what I would say is that if you feel like the way that your relationships are going, there's a sense of not feeling, of maybe feeling dismissed or invalidated. Like that's maybe one sign of maybe there's something deeper going on here that I'm not quite sure, like aware of yet. And
Yeah.
it all starts with insight. And then we can discover what are some different things we can do. That's going to take sometimes a little bit of time because we're breaking through what feels safe and what feels right.
I would imagine that a lot of your struggles come with people being open and honest and vulnerable. And maybe sometimes people don't realize they have the trauma until you dive in deeper. So, what are some ways that you can open people up a little bit more when you feel a little bit of resistance?
So, Shae, that's a really great question, truly, because this is what I actually tell a lot of people. I tell my clinicians on staff, I tell clients as well, is look, you've got locks on your doors for reasons, right? And passcodes for reasons. And I'm never going to ask you to just go ahead and open up the door, right? And let me in. So, resistance is really often about protecting yourself, right?
Yes.
And so, in terms of me meeting a client where they're at and helping them feel more at ease to open up, it really just means that maybe we sit with that locked door and we just
Hmm.
look at what that resistance is about and why is it hard to talk about. And then
Hmm.
we eventually will get to a place where maybe, okay, maybe we're talking about it in a way that is really useful, or we eventually get to the core of it. But
Hmm.
in terms of, I think, the initial conversations, the way that I even when I work with my clients from day one, we're looking at family of origin, but with the purpose of I'm collecting background information to understand you a little bit. It's
Yeah.
not a matter of yes or no questions. Like if you've ever been to therapy,
Yeah.
often the first session is like a lot of yes or no questions, right?
Yeah.
Kind of like an interview or an initial assessment. I do that, but it's more conversational. Tell me about what
Hmm.
your childhood was like. Did you have a
Hmm.
sibling? Were mom and dad together? Did they get divorced? What was that like? Did they argue with each other? What would happen when they would argue? Were you close with your siblings? Who watched you? We're having conversations about what your experiences in the world have been, and then relating it to what's going on in your relationships now. What are maybe the challenges you're seeing in parenting, or how many kids do you have, and how do you see that's affecting things? So we start to make parallels, if that makes sense, day one, and then
Right.
respecting where somebody's at from day one. Really, if we're not ready to go there, that's okay.
Yeah. So
Sorry.
I feel that a lot of people maybe have, it's kind of like, so I'm a real estate agent, and people have probably had a bad experience with a real estate agent. So then they don't like all real estate agents, or like all real estate agents are not good. Same with therapy. Like they've tried a therapist and it didn't go very well. So they probably have like a stigma. They're not going to be able to help me. I actually tried going to therapy. Oh, this has probably been 4 months ago. And I went to 3 different sessions and I wasn't overly impressed. Now, I was a case manager for mentally ill adults. I went to school for human service counseling. So I kind of get the gist. Obviously, I didn't go down, get my master's and practice therapy and stuff like that. But I really felt like, so I would go to the therapy, the counseling appointment, and she would ask me how she could help me. And I felt, so what can I do to help you? And I'm like, I don't know. I don't know, probably stuff. I don't know. You tell me. How does that, so like I went through 3 sessions and that was pretty much the gist of it. Like I was ready to open up, talk to her about it, but she kept asking me how she can help me. And I'm like, I don't know. You help me figure out what's wrong with me. You know what I mean? So after the third time, I was like, okay, I think I'm just done. I didn't feel that I was getting things out of it. Like I was ready. I was very open, honest, but then I don't know. I was hoping for a little bit more of a deeper, in depth, maybe. I don't know.
Yeah. I think every therapist does have a different style and approach and different ways of framing things. I think that it's not uncommon for some therapists to kind of ask you, like, what are your ideas in terms of what you're hoping to achieve out of this? And that question might be asked a bunch of different ways. But there is usually an initial question of some kind that's, so what brings you here?
Yes.
And I think what you're talking about truly is the intricacies that we have in relationship dynamics, right? How things are worded, how we're presenting ourselves energetically, what somebody's body language is in response to something that you say, right? All of those little like unspoken things are cues and communications that can sometimes, very initially, if you've only had one session or one appointment with somebody, can really turn someone off. So in that instance, it really is a matter of like finding somebody from the get that kind of makes it easy, because it's not easy to sit here and talk about, tell me about your childhood. Why? I don't want to. Like, how is that relevant? I've had that question.
Yeah.
How is this relevant?
Yeah.
I think it all comes down to the relationship dynamics of things, energetically too.
Yeah. Now, do you find it a little bit more difficult to do like therapy sessions virtually? I know it's a lot more convenient for a lot more people because not everybody has the time to drive to somebody, maybe a little bit more cost effective for them. But do you find that maybe like virtually you're not getting the full effect of body language? Like you said, when they make a move and you're virtually, maybe you're not picking up on those nonverbal cues as much as you would in person. Do you find that a challenge sometimes?
Actually, no. And I'll tell you why. For me, I don't feel that way. I'm very comfortable doing virtual therapy. So that's the first piece of it, is I think your therapist for anything, whether it's virtual therapy, whether it's the topic at hand, the therapist has to be comfortable with that. And we can talk, what I mean by that, to get very clear, is, for example, if your therapist is not comfortable talking about sex, it's not going to be a comfortable interaction, and we're just not going to be open. There's not going to be really, maybe the conversation is not going to feel reciprocal, maybe. Right? So for me, I'm very comfortable for a lot of reasons with doing virtual therapy. What I have found in my clients, though, is that because they're in their own space, maybe you're underneath a blanket, maybe, you haven't needed to get in the car and go drive somewhere and find parking. Oh my gosh, now I have to spend an hour here and then drive back and go back to work. Like, that sometimes is also a barrier, but then there's sometimes a little bit more comfort because I'm home, right?
Yeah.
Like, I'm in leggings, or I have a cup of coffee, or I'm eating a snack. Right off the bat, like the client is in a more comfortable position, but you're seeing their pets walk across the screen,
Mm-hmm.
their plants on the wall, and saying, I have a pathos too. I don't find that so much. I'm always looking at body language. I'm not necessarily announcing it unless I see somebody look down and it's relevant to what we're talking about. But
Yeah.
it just depends, I think, on how acutely aware and comfortable the
Mm-hmm.
therapist is with really whatever's at hand, virtually speaking, like the space or the topic at hand. There are
Right.
times, though, that virtual therapy is not maybe the right modality.
Right.
Family therapy, I think, is one of them,
Yeah.
right? Because
Yeah.
there's so many people in the room. Where someone chooses to sit is really important, and why. There's a lot that you can't see on a screen in a family dynamic because
Yeah.
there's multiple people in the room, right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
more non-spoken cues in a family
Yeah.
dynamic.
I can also see people wanting to do like virtual because they don't want others knowing they're going to counseling. I can, especially if you're, for me, example, I'm well known in the community, and my thought was always like, okay, if I'm going to this counselor, one, I do worry about confidentiality. I worry about people obviously talking, whatever. But then also it's okay, what if people see my vehicle and like, oh, Shae's going to counseling. She's got all these problems. We all have problems.
Mhm.
We all have problems. So I also can see why virtual counseling would be put people a little bit more at ease because nobody would know that I'm in my own office having a therapy session.
Absolutely. Yeah. And the other piece of it is it really can easily, seamlessly fit in your day, right?
Mhm.
There's less, even if there's a sense of, "Oh, I really don't want to go and talk today," it's like, all I have to do is click a button. And that's just step one. And I will say, if you're in that position, if you're ever in that position where you're like, I really don't want to do this today, but I really want to give it a try,
Yeah.
tell your therapist that. If client came in and said to me, Alyssa, I don't want to be here today, I'd be like, great, tell me why. We can talk about it. That is, again, perfect example of like all we're doing is having and building a relationship.
Yeah. Yeah. Very much. Now, you said that you specialize like with childhood trauma, especially with parenting. Do you do a lot of, are you more individual or is it more couples therapy?
Both. So it really depends, right, on what somebody's looking for. I do individual therapy, we do individual therapy, we do couples. But the way that when I guess our way of doing family counseling, right, would be working with the parents because we
Right.
can't do family therapy virtually. I just don't believe that it's. Is it possible? Yes, but I feel like you miss out on a lot being in a
Yeah.
virtual space. So the way that we help parents is by having both of them or the caretakers, whoever's really mainly involved in the child's life, to a virtual session, and you can have a couple participate from separate locations if need be. If one's at work and one's at home, that's okay. But yeah, that's so it's couples, it's parents together as a separate like niche, I would say,
Hmm.
or individual.
And what do you find is the biggest struggle for couples when it comes to parenting or whatever they have going on in their life? What have you seen is the most prominent concern or issue for parents nowadays?
Nowadays, okay, so nowadays, if we're making it like specifically to like the society culture pressures,
Maybe both. Yeah, society, cultural pressures, and then is it past trauma for the families and the couples trying to figure that out? Or what do you see is the biggest struggle?
okay. So I think truly that when it comes to relationships, the what it all boils down to often is communication. Now, we live in a challenging time as well for many different reasons, and a lot of the challenge also then sustains itself because we're not talking about them. We're either going to fight about it to the death, or I'm going to cancel you, or we're just going to pretend it's not happening. And that
Yeah.
shows up whether in the world about any issue that might be happening, or it can show up in our relationship as well. So then when we don't talk about it, we're on opposite sides of the fence,
Yeah.
blaming each other, right? And
Yeah.
building resentment. And now I'm assuming or believing all these really negative things about you. And then
Yeah.
my anger is growing over here. And the divide just gets bigger and bigger.
Mm.
So, I guess to answer your question, is that I think it all really truly boils down to communication. And why are we not communicating? On. Why are
Right.
we subconsciously choosing to fight? And why are we subconsciously choosing to not talk about this? What's
Yeah.
going on?
Yeah. So what do you think is, because you can easily say you guys need to talk more. Okay, clearly that's very difficult for people. And I don't know if it's because they don't want to bring something up and start a fight, so it's easier not to address it, but then it gets, that tension rises, or you stew on it for too long and then you finally lash out at each other. But what are some things that people can do each and every day, or even if it's once a week, to build that relationship back with the person that you married and have that more open communication? What is something that you would recommend for couples, whether they're struggling or not?
Yeah, I think asking that question of why are we not talking? What am I potentially afraid of in speaking with you? Am I afraid of getting hurt? Am I afraid of feeling dismissed? Am I afraid of, yes, getting into a fight and what may happen from there? So that's an important question to get curious with, both internally for yourself, but then even with your partner. Why is this topic so hard for us? And then as far as how can we get back on track, is spending some more time with each other, being conscious of spending more time together. I'm not talking about like just watching a TV show together,
Right.
sure, but we're talking about quality connection time and consciously, intentionally setting that time to do that. Now, the reality is, I can tell you that, and you can say, Alyssa, yeah, of course, I know, right? That's what Google says to do too, is, go on more dates and do that. And the reality is we're busy, we have kids. Absolutely. Absolutely, I know. And there's probably something deeper of why you're not talking.
Yeah.
Why,
Yeah.
when you do try to talk, it doesn't go anywhere, or why
Mhm.
something else is just more taking more precedence or more of a priority over spending
Yeah.
time together. So it's not as simple as just do the thing. I think giving yourself grace, but also saying, okay, to each other and to yourself, maybe there's a reason why we're not talking. Broach that question with your partner, with yourself, of like, why aren't we? When did
Right.
we stop?
And so my husband and I, we did some couples counseling, like 2-day intense couples counseling about 4 months ago. And we've done really good. And then you slack and then you get back into what we need to do to build our relationship more. And I would say that just the communication thing, I know it sounds so simple, but truly having those hard conversations, because even in your relationship, but also business, if you can have the hard conversations, things are so much better in the long run. They truly are. Do those hard conversations suck? Absolutely. But they really make things so much better. And one of the things that my husband and I talked about is we're both entrepreneurs, we're both real estate agents. Oh my gosh. Sorry, somebody just walked into my door. But we're both real estate agents, so we're pulled in all these different directions. And so my biggest thing is I'm always on my phone negotiating deals or whatever the case may be, and he's starting to get busier now too. But our biggest thing is, like, when we're home together, I have a hard time being home, like mentally home. So he even said, he's like, Shae, that's one of the things that we talked about, is what he used to say to me is, hey, cheetah fingers, if I was on my phone. So then I would instantly get defensive because I'm like, okay, hey, do you want me to make money? Do you want me to keep my business going? What are you talking about? And but when we went to therapy, she was like, okay, we need to word this a little bit differently. Like, we need to say, hey, Shae, one, can you finish up what you're doing quick? Because I need you here to be with us, me and the kids and I. We need you. And I'm like, okay, that's a lot better than hey, cheetah fingers. You know what I mean? But that was his way of expressing it, where I got very defensive at it.
Yeah.
So it's just, yeah, the communication. Then every Wednesday we have our lunch. So even if it's just an hour, then on Sundays we have our State of the Union discussion. Like, how did I show up for you last week? Was there something that happened that maybe you didn't mention to me? Because he's more of, oh, I'll let things go, but he kind of stews on it, but he doesn't ever bring it up later. But I need you to tell me these things if something bothers you. So those are things that we're having our State of the Union conversation on Sundays is, was there anything that arose that you didn't communicate with me that bothered you, and vice versa? And then how can I show up better for you this week? And that's helped a lot.
Yeah, absolutely. Yes. That's actually something that I tell a lot of my clients is we have these meetings at work, right, where we talk about our monthly goals, our weekly to-dos and how we're going to make things happen, but we don't do that in our relationships. Or
Mm-hmm.
we have our separate ships that we're driving like through the night, but we're not
Mm-hmm.
necessarily sitting together and talking about what are our goals, what needs to happen this week. Yeah,
Yeah.
I call it our weekly like business meetings, like,
Yeah.
But yeah, and then this goes back to too, like every therapist is different. Everybody has different approaches, right? So like some couples counseling can be really skills and strategies focused, right?
Mm-hmm.
It depends. Like there are some also, like myself, that also focus on the dynamic or the dance between the two of you, right? So
Right.
I think to show you what I mean by that is I would probably be like, okay, so there's a sense of maybe being moving really fast and always really working. Is there a sense of survival mode coming up? Hey,
Mm-hmm.
do you feel alone in the relationship? And then do you feel alone as well? Okay, in what way are you in survival mode? Why are we each in survival mode? When did that survival mode
Mm-hmm.
begin? So we go a little bit deeper and then tailor the skills specifically to what's triggering that dynamic. And then being in survival mode, sometimes it's parenting just because it's
Mm-hmm.
a lot, right?
Yeah.
But also sometimes it's a sense of I feel so unseen and I
Yeah.
can't rely on my partner because of X, Y, or Z. So
Mm-hmm.
it's on me to make sure that I can do this, right? That is what keeps sometimes, no matter how great the strategy or skill is, right? Just if we have a shed with a bunch of tools, we can have the sharpest tool in the shed, a really great fancy drill. But if we've got a bunch of, I hope this is okay to curse, but if we've got a bunch of shit in the way from
Right.
accessing that drill and that really fancy tool, we're not going to be able to reach
Mm-hmm.
it,
Mm-hmm.
right? So being preventative to have time together, structured intentional time, whether it is dates, I do think those meetings are really important.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Mm-hmm.
even if you're not completely at that point where you even want to use the skills yet, because sometimes we're
Yeah.
mad at each other.
Yeah.
But if we also go a little deeper and say, like, how did we get here? Discover how we got here.
Yeah.
What's maintaining that cycle of us being on opposite sides of the fence and me being on that one ship and you being on the other, then we're going to be able to reach for the tools because we're going to be also more motivated to reach for those. And we're going to have less interactions that are going to like no relationship is perfect. We're going to
Right.
fight. We're not going to be our best selves. It's
Yeah.
just, we've got too much on our plates,
Yeah.
all of us. So if something goes a little bit south and we're not our best selves, but we've got a really strong foundation or dynamic otherwise, it's not going to derail the whole thing.
Right. It's funny that you said like when you're mad at each other because we've had like every Wednesday over the lunch hour is when we're supposed to meet, and we've had situations where we weren't fighting. We don't fight, but like there's a little bit of tension. So we've had it before. Are we meeting today? And we're like, oh, we probably should. We better. And then it really does help us. Like, okay, what's going on? Why are we not talking through this? It forces us to have those conversations because it's on our calendar. Just
Right.
like business and appointments, you need to put your priorities on your calendar. And that's one thing that I learned a long time ago is like I have 3 little kids and I'm running a business. My husband has his own business. And so it's hard to designate and prioritize family time as well. But what I learned a long time ago is you need to put your family time in there first, and you can plan your schedule around your family time. Like yesterday, I went to my daughter's field trip, and unfortunately, I didn't have it on my calendar. So I ended up having to reschedule and cancel a bunch of things, but she really wanted me to go. Normally, it's on my calendar. I don't know how I missed it, but I don't miss my kids' activities. I coach almost every single one of their sporting events, mainly because if I don't, nobody does. It's the wildest thing. But so it's just prioritizing your family time and putting them in the schedule. Now, I'm still working on being present with my family when I am home. Obviously, when I'm coaching, I'm not on my phone and stuff like that. So I think that's also why I enjoy coaching because it forces me to be away from my phone.
Yeah.
It's nice to get away from my phone. It really is. It's wonderfully fantastic. But it gives me a little bit of anxiety sometimes because I'm like, what did I miss? What I'm gonna miss? But yeah, what is something else that parents struggle with? I guess we talked about this prior to the episode. What do you see with technology and kids and parenting? Because obviously that's got to be a big topic for you and parents and stuff like that.
Absolutely. Our kids nowadays are growing up in a much more technology connected world, and it's
Mm-hmm.
very much intertwined with every aspect of our lives. Google Classroom, right? It's everywhere. And there are the pressures of there's so much information out there. It's easily accessible. We see the effects of it on us as adults. And so we think about a child's mind that is still developing and how susceptible they are to information. there's a lot of to be concerned about, of like wanting to keep our kids small and safe and protect them from sometimes this information which is not always helpful, accurate, or true. So that's one element. And then there's the other side of the fence, which is our kids are going to grow up in a world that is even more technologically advanced. So
Mm-hmm.
a certain amount of exposure to it is really important, right? Because there's an aspect of maybe being on the outside of things, right? Not really
Mm-hmm.
having that opportunity to connect with peers because maybe they're more restricted on social media. While I
Mm-hmm.
understand and it's valid to not, I don't even know that I want my son to have a phone.
I know. I know.
But it's a sticky spot to be in because we also would want to provide them with opportunities to practice coping skills, self-regulation skills when it comes to communication, when it comes to seeing peers on social media. We think about how we might compare ourselves to others as adults when we look at other
Mm-hmm.
people's profiles and things like
Mm-hmm.
that. We can start young with our kids and build up their self-esteem.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I think it comes down to communication. Yes, obviously, there might have to be a lot of parameters or boundaries in place or preparation for when the day comes around access to
Mm-hmm.
technology and social media. But keeping the lines of communication open with your
Right.
about, yeah, what's it like to be on social media? What are you seeing, feeling? Sure, making things a conversation, but also checking in with them, right?
Yeah.
The effects of all of this stuff on you.
Yeah. I think that's important, checking in on the kids, because I do notice when you get busy in life, talk to your kids, but it's truly like checking in on them. And when, especially when you have multiple kids, sometimes you're like, oh, let's hurry up and get to bed. We got school in the morning, we got a shower, you got homework. But having those one-on-one conversations with each of your kids, it is important and on a regular basis. And sometimes we forget that, oh my gosh, it's probably been a week before since I've actually had a legitimate conversation with my kid. And it makes you feel bad because you're like, oh my gosh, like I'm there and we're talking, but not like in depth. And even like my 5 year old, she's 6, my 6 year old, I've even had conversations with her and I'm like, so how was school? And then she'll just completely open up when it's her and and it's you, I need to do this more. Whether it's a good thing or a bad thing on what she's talking about, but it helps her to express. And I remember there was a time a couple years ago, my oldest was having troubles at school. And I asked her, because I could tell she was angry. And I said, Riley, how did that make you feel when that happened? And she just bawled and she just broke down. But it's really meeting them in their emotional side and not trying to, because men especially try to fix. What did you do? What did they say? What did you say? Blah, blah, blah. They're trying to fix the problem. But that's not the reality of it, especially in girls. Like they're very emotional. Like their reality, their perspective of what happened was their reality, whether it's what really happened or not, but that was her interpretation.
Yeah, yeah. And this is where I think now we get to sometimes be a little bit more intricate and like the dynamics of relationships is like when you have a child who it sounds like Riley was very open with you, with showing
Mm-hmm.
her emotions, and then even your 6 year old, like she was just telling you all about your day. My son, I can ask him, "How was your day?" And he, very young age, was like,
Good.
and I'm thinking that doesn't start till like teenage years, but
Yeah.
no, that starts apparently very young. And
Yes.
so I think not every child is going to be the same either. And so
Yes.
sometimes that forces us to have to be like I don't know, a little bit more flexible in how we
Yeah.
approach these conversations because some
Mm-hmm.
might respond to like, how does that make you feel? Or they might tell you about their day, but not always. So it's
Yeah.
like we have to find something that matches to our kids, right?
Yes.
And I think also even gaining the communication skills internally for ourselves where we can feel comfortable broaching really difficult, hard, messy, uncomfortable conversations, our kids are going to be more comfortable to approach and respond to and receive those conversations, just like your
Mm-hmm.
experience in therapy, right? Another piece of it too is our kids don't always, now in schools, they're talking more about emotions and social emotional skills, but it's still a little bit they don't really have enough focus on it.
Mm-hmm.
Something missing there.
Yeah.
So sometimes kids don't have the language or perceptions around this feeling is bad, so we
Right.
shouldn't feel this way. They're not that different from us in the sense of understanding emotions, right? As parents, if we understand how we're feeling, try and name it for our kids. So if you
Right.
see, for example, you can tell that your daughter was angry, right?
Right.
Mad. It's often the case that children have no idea what they're feeling.
Mhm.
Say, I see you seem like you're upset about something. To be upset, if you want to talk about it, I'm here.
Yeah.
Or if you have a child who's maybe more externally reactive through their behavior, big emotion. In a sense, it's like you could be really thankful, as hard as
Yeah.
that is, but that's them communicating with you, I'm not
Yeah.
okay, which
Yeah.
you've got a lot to work with there. Now you can name it. Okay, I see you're angry. You're allowed to be angry, but we're not allowed to throw things.
Yes.
So come here, let's find a way to cool down together, and then we
Yep.
can talk about it. But if we're struggling as parents to identify what it is that we're feeling or how to
Yeah.
regulate what we're feeling, we're not going to be able to do that for our kids. So everything begins within our parenting, our communication with our spouse, communication with our kids. It's like being able to access that stuff with others, we have to first be able to access it with ourselves.
Our youngest, she has big emotions. She's that one. She's the one who has big emotions. And we bought these series of books about emotions. I don't remember what it's called.
The spot.
But yes. So each book it talks about that specific emotion. And we bought that for her like 3 years ago, 4 years ago, probably before when she was born. That's how big emotions she's had. But it has, I feel like, helped her understand what those emotions are. And we try to help her do the like tap, whatever it is. We're still working on it. Still working on it. But it is trying to find out the difference because our son is very similar to yours. So how was your day? Good. Okay, what'd you do? Played. Who'd you play with? Oh, Theo. Yay, great, awesome. But he's such a sweet kid. So you don't really worry about him, but at the same time, like you want them to know you're there whenever they need it. Because he's very simple. Very simple. But yeah, what is something you could share with our listeners, especially moms who might be struggling with like emotional side of parenting because parenting can be extremely difficult. So what is something that you could share for them?
For someone who's maybe feeling overwhelmed, you mean?
Yeah.
Self-care. I know we hear it all the time. It sounds bumper stickery. There could even be a sense of, I know I've heard this before. That's not new. But that is the truth of it. And I hate to go back to that, but like when you're overwhelmed, that's your body telling you that, hey, we're running on overdrive. Hey,
Mm-hmm.
we're on E, right? So if you're struggling with any sort of emotion with parenting, asking yourself, what is it that I need that I'm not getting right now, and how can I
Mm-hmm.
give it to myself? So
Mm-hmm.
if I'm feeling exhausted, okay, I need a break. Like even if I can't go take a nap, how can I introduce some ease into my day? If I'm feeling
Right.
overstimulated, am I trying to cook dinner? The dog is barking, the phone is ringing, and I'm trying to, all these things. Okay, take one thing away. How,
Mm-hmm.
take two things away. The rice. Put chicken nuggets that night in. Like it's,
Right.
you know what I mean? Whatever it is that's going to get you through it so that you're
Yeah.
taking care of yourself and supporting yourself. So often we forget about ourselves
Yeah.
because we're needing to support other people. In order to do that, we have to be okay too.
Is there any consistent self-care that you would recommend people to do? Because I think self-care is a lot like therapy and changing the oil of your vehicle. It's taking care of yourself is also preventative maintenance because you're not going to always want to do the things that you should do for self-care. I can go into the list that I do for my self-care for the most part, but what do you like to see or what do you recommend for people to focus on their self-care, even if it's something simple?
In terms of like regular maintenance, absolutely. Do at least one thing a day for yourself. One
Mm-hmm.
thing for yourself that at the end of the day you can say, as much as I had to take care of other people and I had all these other things to do, I did do this one thing for me. It wasn't completely about everybody else. And you can decide the night before. It could be something as simple as making your bed and acknowledging, wow, that feels really good to look at my bed.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't have to be a huge, intricate thing, is what I'm trying to say. Maybe it's reading
Right.
a few pages of a book in the morning or journaling. And the
Mm-hmm.
more that maybe you start to do that and reflect on, okay, how do I feel now that I did that? You might start to incorporate more of those moments in throughout the day because it felt so good. That obviously making sure that you get enough sleep, which is not always easy,
Right.
asking for what you want and need in your relationships as well.
Yeah. Yeah.
And when you're a mom, And a business owner, which I know is a lot of your audience here, the phone never stops. The kids really always want you. So sometimes it is a matter of needing some silence.
Yeah. Yeah. My mornings are like my sanctuary. I don't know if you haven't ever read The Miracle Morning, but that by Hal Elrod, I love it. It is a lot to take in at once, but like you said, you could start with one thing, and as things go and as you enjoy it, you can continue to add more and more. But my number one like non-negotiable is my workouts. If I don't get my workouts done in the morning, my day just feels ruined, and or if I wake, let's say a weekend, and if I wake up later when the kids are up, it does cause me a lot of anxiety because they're usually down there with me. They're arguing, they're fighting. So if I didn't get my workout in before they got up, it causes more anxiety for me and I get more frustrated. So I need to get up early enough before they're up because I don't need them fighting. That's my time. That's my focus time among several other things. But that's my sanctuary is my morning time and my workouts.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. And it can look like a lot of different things for many people. I think that we sometimes put a lot of focus on, yes, drinking water, all of that, vitamins, supplements, working out. 100%. The mind body connection is there. It's there. You cannot say that there isn't one. And it really, truly can influence the other. I think emotional self care needs to be included in that, though. Right? Asking yourself when you feel an emotion, especially if you don't like it, I understand it's uncomfortable or there's a sense of I don't want to feel this way, but shifting into what is this emotion trying to tell me about what I need that I'm not getting and how can I give it to myself?
Yeah.
And then maybe the how you give it to yourself is going for a walk, is going to have a workout, is going to drink more
Mhm.
water, acknowledging what's going on emotionally as well.
And if you could go back and give yourself, your younger self, one piece of advice, what would that be?
Ooh, that's a really great question. In terms of, let me think about parenting. I would say, Alyssa, everybody's talking about preparing for a baby in terms of baby shower and how are you going to breastfeed or bottle feed and all of these things, but they're not talking about the emotional transition of becoming a parent. Make sure
Mhm.
that you have some time and some space and some people to talk that through with as well.
Very true. Very true. Very true. Got just a few more questions and we can speed it up just a little bit. But these are three questions that you'd be really good at answering. So the first one is, why does becoming a parent sometimes bring up old wounds that we thought we had moved past? And how can we use those moments for healing?
Yeah. Okay. So with that, that goes back to something I think that we had spoken about earlier before we started the call is when we first of all, when we become parents, we're parenting how we were parented. Sorry, is we're often influenced by how we were parented, right? And so even our family values, there are things that we want to maybe continue in our family system when we have children or a partner of our own. Then may be an awareness of something that we want to break as well. When it comes down to opening up childhood wounds, the thing is, you're going to see your kids struggle with things, as you might have.
Yeah.
And maybe the response when you were a kid was like, get over it. Like, it's not that big of a deal. Stop.
Yeah.
Subconsciously, even inadvertently, we could send the same message and not realize, and then see the effects of that playing out now visibly with our children, and it
Right.
triggers something. Or there's an aspect of I see my kid struggling, and it's just really gut wrenching, and I'm really anxious about what might happen as a result. Were you ever in a position like that, and how were you supported through it? So, in terms of how this triggers your own stuff, to get more clear or concise, you're seeing it now play out right in front of you. Those
Right.
same scenarios that you went through as a kid, and maybe you didn't have the support that you needed.
So true. It is so true. So true. Alyssa, I thank you so much for joining us today. Your wisdom, your warmth, and honesty around motherhood and healing are so powerful. To our listeners, remember you are resilient, you are capable, and you are worthy of an abundant, connected life, both as a mom and as a human being. So keep going and you've got this. And Alyssa, where can people find you if they're looking for like a therapy session or wanting to just connect with you? Where can they get connected?
Yeah, so we are on social media. We're on Instagram and Facebook, but the best place to reach us is our website, and that's www.collective-therapy.com. So collective-therapy.com.
And we'll include that in the show notes. So again, Alyssa, thank you so much for being here. And until next time, we'll talk soon.
Thank you.
And that wraps up another inspiring episode of the Real Moms Podcast. A huge thank you to our incredible guests for sharing their story and insights today. If you found value in today's conversation, don't forget to hit that subscribe button so you never miss an episode. And hey, sharing is caring, right? Share this podcast with your fellow mompreneurs, friends, and anyone who you feel could use a dose of inspiration. Share it on your social media as well. But most importantly, if you found this episode helpful, please, please, please leave me a 5-star review. This helps get our information out to those who have never heard or seen us before. Are you feeling inspired and you're sure that you could add some value to the podcast? Shoot me a message and let's talk. We love hearing from you. So connect with us on social media. Tag me at Shae J Spitz, that's ShaeJSpitz, and share your thoughts and takeaways, or even suggest topics you'd like to have us explore more in the future episodes. Remember, you're not alone on this journey. Your resilience is your strength, and your pursuit of abundant living is truly remarkable. As always, keep thriving, keep growing, and keep embracing the beautiful chaos of being a mompreneur. Until next time, take care, stay real, and keep living abundantly.